Good evening, everyone. If you don't know, you should know. My name is Rameez and I am a filmmaker and a film critic. And yes, the beard is gone, which fits well with the TV show I'm reviewing, 11/22/63.
CIA's pulling the trigger. What do we do now?
Then you kill Oswald.
Everything you say is a lie.
I've had this hat for a while now, and I've always wanted to use it. I think this review calls for it. Let's put this hat on. I hope I don't look like a tool. Well, looks like I do. Anyway, 11/22/63 is an 8-part miniseries. It is based off a book by Stephen King, and it involves time travel. Our main character, Jake Epping, an English teacher, travels back in time to stop the JFK assassination. If that doesn't reel you in, I don't know what will. Now, obviously, the show begins with a really cool intro at the beginning of every episode, and that intro gives a bit of insight as to what the series is about: time travel and string theory. Read up on string theory, people. The very first scene of the series starts off with a haunting story being told by a character, a student in James Franco's class. And there's one quote that is said by that student that sets the tone for this whole series and as to why this event is going to be important, like the series. It's because we know JFK and the story surrounding him. That's why we're going to care for him. This is advice a recent superhero film should have followed. I don't think it should be told anymore. We'll only care about characters if we know about them. If we don't know about them, why are you making the movie to begin with? But later on, through a friend of Jake Epping's, played by the excellent Chris Cooper, he finds a time portal that takes him back to the 60s. And Chris Cooper is the one who tells him, I need you to go back into 1960 and stop the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I'm really glad that the streaming service 11/22/63 was on, recognized the power and potential of this story, and because of that, they hired some really good directors for this show. One of them being Oscar-nominated director Kevin MacDonald, the guy who directed The Last King of Scotland. Fantastic work. He directs the pilot. As I said earlier, this is a series based off a Stephen King novel, and it is the sci-fi equivalent of the film JFK, and I'm pretty sure that they even borrow a prop from that same movie Oliver Stone made. But as any Stephen King stories, there's a horror element into this story as well. The main element of horror is the past not wanting to be changed. It's amazing to see how time and space bend to mess with Jake. I'll say one line: you shouldn't be here. The first episode is dedicated to set up the logic and the rules of time travel. Apparently there's only one destination that goes through the time portal, and it starts in 1960. And you can spend an infinite amount of time in the past, but when you come back to the present, you'll only have passed or spent 2 minutes. It's very much like the first hour of Inception, and it answers any questions the audience might have. And it's really cool to see all the schemes Chris Cooper came up with to survive in the past. We see that he gambled on sports because of course he knew all the results. How is he keeping his diner in business and with such cheap prices? Well, obviously he brings his meat back from the past. That is really friggin' cool. And what's really cool about the first episode is Chris Cooper's character. We get to see the dangers of time travel. Chris Cooper traveled back in time. He stayed from 1960 till 1962 and was diagnosed with cancer. That really sells the dangers of time travel. You don't know what's going to happen when you're spending all your time in the past. And that is one element that I don't think I've seen that much apart from Back to the Future, where a person goes into the past and some weird stuff happens to him. We see them change elements and come back without a scratch on them. I gotta give James Franco a lot of credit, man. Lately, he's been on kind of a slump, but he's fantastic in this series. He acts out Predetermination so well. Predetermination is the acting of acting. You have to act as if you're acting, and he's completely believable when he's doing all those things. He also has the writing to thank for that aspect of his performance, as it neutrally blends his mission and his personal mission together. Also, since he's an executive producer on the series, it's safe to say that he loved the source material, which leads to the earnest performance. He's got a tough role to play, honestly. He has to play a person who knows the future, but doesn't know everything about the future when he's in the past. And his defining scene comes in episode 5. It is a feat of cinematography and acting. It takes place on a dinner table, that's all I'll tell you guys. If I had to compare his performance to one person, it would be to Anthony Perkins from 1962's The Trial, which I recently saw. Check out my review. Now, as a critic, I enjoy other critics' reviews, and I was inclined to read a bunch of them, and one thing I found in common was how everyone complained about the pace of this show. It's really slow paced, which is understandable why people would complain about it. Audiences nowadays have really short attention spans. But I believe the slow pace has been done on purpose. It's been done deliberately. If you think about it, science fiction in the 60s was really heavy-handed, slow, and kind of boring until Star Wars came along, of course. You look at films such as Fantastic Voyage, Logan's Run, and Seconds of 1966. Check out all those films, by the way. Those are really slow-paced films, but those are heavy-handed and massive story type films. 11/22/63 fits that bill perfectly. It is a massive story which is slowly paced, so it fits in with the 60s. And it's really okay for this story, first of all, because it's not boring at all. And might I remind you, this is a time travel story. Why would you want a fast-paced story in time travel? The only episode I had an issue with was the second to last episode, because it felt like an overly long montage and it was playing catch up to the story. Lee Harvey Oswald's motivations become a bit too simplistic, but with that being said, it still takes our main character of Jake Epping into really neat and dark places. However, it is of very little consequence, as the dark places Jake Epping goes to are completely forgotten in the last episode of this show. Speaking of the guy playing Lee Harvey Oswald, Daniel Weber is absolutely fantastic. The way he internalizes his anger is fantastic. The performance is a perfect blend of a man showing subdued anger and intimacy. Also, I hear a lot of people criticizing James Franco's performance in the very last episode, which is laughable to me. Were you watching the same series? It is completely clear as to why he was acting the way he was when he comes back from the past. He realizes that he lost a second chance at something. You'll find out what that something was, and he realizes that he'll keep on losing that second chance over and over and over. It's about the emotions he doesn't show in the last episode, not the one he shows. Remember, his mission was different from Chris Cooper's. Now, as much as I've praised 11/22/63, sadly it will fall into the niche content of TV. Even though TV nowadays is much more thought-provoking and entertaining than movies, there's still a bunch of crap, if you will, that people choose to stick to instead of watching brilliant stuff like this. Shows such as Empire, Gotham, Arrow, The Walking Dead. I'm sorry, The Walking Dead is dog shit. And for the life of me, I'll never understand why people enjoy Game of Thrones. This show, however, doesn't belong in that list. This show falls into the category of truly timeless television, with shows such as Hannibal, The Wire, Utopia, Black Mirror, and Fargo. This is a gem of a miniseries, man. It's humorous, it's a time travel junkie's wet dream, a forum worth of discussion for conspiracy theorists, and quite possibly the only time the antagonist is faceless. There is literally very little wrong in a single second of this 8-hour-long marathon. It made me wish I had a time machine. It made me wish I had a neuralizer so I can wipe my memory to rewatch this thing again and again and again. That is how good this was. Oh my god. I'm happy. I'm so friggin' happy because of a TV show. This is something Hollywood hasn't given me in a long time, about a month. This could very well be the best thing I've ever seen on TV. It rarely happens that I raise my hands in shock over a movie or a TV show. I did that tons of times in 11/22/63. I am giving this show my highest rating, a final rating of 5 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching, people. It really means a lot, but you know what'll mean a whole lot more to me? If you watch 11/22/63. Seriously, people, you will love it. But anyway, if you want to connect with me, people, I am on Twitter and on Snapchat. Feel free to add me at Rameez. I love talking to my subscribers. And until next time, remember to love yourself. Thank you so much.
I know that nothing can ever change the love I